So as I mentioned before the break, regulations are a favorite pastime of this administration, and 2015 is set to continue that trend. The Competitive Enterprise Institute says that in 2014, 2,374 new rules were proposed by the Obama administration, on top of the 3,541 final rules and regulations for the same year. Unbelievably enough, 2015 is set to be even bigger, right? Here to talk about the big hand of government, which apparently just keeps on growing, is the Washington Free Beacon's Lachlan Markay. Happy New Year, Lachlan. Thanks for joining us. That was even more than I had originally realized in 2014. At some point, don't people in government, Lachlan, just sit down and go, you know what, I think we've maybe regulated enough? I mean, I think, 3,000, actually at this point it's like close to 5,000 regulations. I think that's kind of enough.
When you're in the president's position, it's the exact opposite. And you'll notice that a lot of these regulations are in areas, specifically environment and climate and energy-related regulations, that he, by definition, these are things he could not get through Congress, especially with the incoming Republican majorities that he's looking at. As he's faced with a Congress that really doesn't agree with him on a lot of these key issues, you're just going to see more and more of this, not less and less of it, as he sort of turns to his pen and his phone, as he says, and decides he's going to get it done, whether or not he can get buy-in from Republicans or even Democrats in Congress.
Right, and there was the idea that, well, the president has two choices before him, with all of this rules and regulations and working with Congress going into 2015 in this new session. He could either kind of be a peacemaker and compromise on some of this stuff, or as he could do exactly what you're saying, just whip out the pen and the phone and do everything by executive order. And it looks like that's probably going to be what we're going to contend with the most, is that executive order.
Yeah, just in terms of energy and environment, we've seen a lot of stuff in the last 6 weeks or so, Thanksgiving and after that. Right after Obama is sort of staring down these massive Republican majorities. So, he's made it clear where he stands. He really has nothing to lose now. He's determined to sort of build a legacy, and it's going to be a very left-wing one if he can get a lot of these regulations through.
What a way to build a legacy. And a lot of these, it seems the most of them, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like the most of them are coming from the Environmental Protection Agency. I'm still mad, Lachlan, I'm not going to lie, still mad at the EPA for reducing phosphates in dish detergent, which is really hard to say when you're asking that as a question, and also makes me really angry because my dishes are dirtier longer. I don't know, maybe it frustrated me. So what else are they going for? What else is the EPA going for in 2015?
Well, you have EPA. You also have the Interior Department, which is working on a big rule on hydraulic fracturing on federal lands. You have the EPA rules that are governing a lot of the chemicals that are emitted by coal-fired power plants. That's sort of the long-running crusade of this administration against the coal industry. So it's really, the main sources of fossil fuel energy, especially that Americans are using to generate their electricity, are really what the administration is going after. The hydraulic fracturing one will be interesting to watch because we're really not sure how hard they're going to come down on the industry. There's actually been a few promising signs lately from Interior Secretary Sally Jewell, White House advisor John Podesta. But, supporters of fossil fuel energy should not be too excited about any of that. This administration just does not have a very good record on energy issues.
Yeah, well, he's fulfilling his promise that he made before the election in 2008, Lachlan, where he's like, I want to bankrupt the coal industry. That seems to be at least what we're getting from the EPA this year. This is essentially just a cap and trade, albeit through a different means, because it wasn't able to proceed through Congress. I remember that big fight in 2010. Is it the full-on scale of everything the president wanted to accomplish?
He probably would have liked to have gotten it done sooner, and probably wishes he could say he got buy-in from Congress back in 2009 when it was considering this. But, I know I don't need to tell you that it was a supermajority in the Senate at the time and a massive Democratic majority in the House. And, the fact that he couldn't get this legislation through that way just speaks volume about the merits or lack thereof. But, you do have, if not popular support, massive support among this huge base of extremely wealthy Democratic donors, Tom Steyer and George Soros and the rest. So, if the president can't please the American voters, he can at least please the people who are filling up Democrats' campaign coffers.
And the FCC is involved in this as well with their new net neutrality rules. How is the GOP planning to push back on this?
You know, it's tough because there are very few people in Congress who actually understand what net neutrality is and sort of the issues that we're dealing with. But I think, Republicans are going to take a very general attitude of, it's probably not wise to entrust something as fast-moving and innovative and organic as the internet to federal bureaucrats. And even during the comment period of the rulemaking process, you were seeing the FCC's website was malfunctioning, and they were having all sorts of technical problems. So if they can't manage the commenting aspect of this rule, it's just amazing to think that they'd be able to regulate the internet from the top down like they're proposing to do.
I hope that people understand how important that issue is. I mean, we've had the Industrial Revolution, this is the digital revolution, and now you're having our government say, how can we make it worse? How can we make it slower and just ruin it? Well, with the so-called net neutrality. I'm glad, though, to see that the Republicans are planning somehow to be able to push back on this. So out of all, Lachlan, from your estimation, out of all of these new proposed regulations that are coming our way in 2015, which of these concerns you the most?
Well, one we haven't really mentioned is an FEC rule, that's Federal Election Commission, where they're considering subjecting a lot of online political speech that in 2006 was exempted from a lot of campaign regulations. The new chairwoman there, who was formerly a campaign finance regulator in California, is considering subjecting YouTube videos, everything as small as Twitter posts and other social media comments to regulation by, federal campaign finance bureaucrats. So that's something you really need to keep an eye out on. I know Lee Goodman, a federal election commissioner, had a great column in the Wall Street Journal a few days ago. So yeah, definitely check that out if you get a chance.
And to just clarify, that would actually affect a lot of people. We're not just talking about political action committees. If they tweet something, I mean, we're talking about how widespread is that? I mean, from my understanding, and we've talked about it a little on this program before, I mean, that could really go and extend to anybody.
Right. Well, the exemption in 2006 basically said if it's free, if the content is free and it's not explicitly advocating for the election or defeat of a candidate, then it's outside of the purview of FEC regulation.
Right.
This woman, Ann Revell, the new chairwoman of the commission, wants to revisit that and basically says that even if it's a video uploaded on YouTube by a small 501c3 or C4 political group, if she deems it, essentially too political, too activist, then she thinks that should be within the purview of the FEC and should be subject to regulation. How that would ever be enforced with the amount of political content we have online is a mystery.
Now, the EPA, going back to the regulations that the coal-powered plants, et cetera, Lachlan, they're saying, well, no, none of these regulations are actually expanding our power. Rather, it's just clarifying our role and managing these issues. What do you say when they push back against the arguments that their reach is expanding?
Well, the sort of the seminal point during for the Obama administration's EPA was the Supreme Court essentially declaring that they have, it's within their regulatory authority to at the time it was to declare carbon dioxide a pollutant. So very often you hear the administration talking about carbon pollution. And it might strike you as odd that the chemical compound that sustains vegetative life on planet Earth could be considered a pollutant. But this is sort of the authority that they've been given, and it's given them very wide range to decide, how to crack down on sort of energy technologies that they find distasteful. And very often they say that technology is available to mitigate the carbon impact of coal-fired power plants or other types of power plants, but it's just too darn expensive to sort of retroactively to retrofit these power plants with these technologies, and it just makes it makes it economically unfeasible to operate them. Absolutely.
Washington Free Beacon's Lachlan Markay. Lachlan, Happy New Year to you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Dana. Always a pleasure.